this is a big ass motor from, who is it? Wolfram. I'll do a separate video on the details on the gap dimensions and the bolt hole pattern and all that stuff, but mostly I just wanted to show in this video on how to recenter a top plate. I don't want to say it's not tough, because I've done it a bunch of times. I want to say that it takes practice, and it's important to be very careful because you're working with live magnets. What I want to do is just go over the basics. Okay, so here's your shifted top plate. It's collapsed the gap, collapsed the field. The positive is connected to the negative, so it's very, very tight. It's going to be very, very problem-ish to separate. Okay, so typically you want to wear gloves. I like to use a nice broad chisel like this. This is from Harbor Freight. This mallet, dead blow, is also from Harbor Freight. And basically the idea is this side here, you can try from this side. Sometimes there's enough push that you can get it underneath. Sometimes, see how this overhangs a little bit? Sometimes you can get it underneath there. But the idea is not to fuck it up too much, even though at this point it's normally just going to get thrown away. And again, this is why we put the bolts now on our motors that we're importing, is to prevent this very thing. What's really hard is when the T-yoke, the bottom, shifts. That one's much more difficult and dangerous because you got to get the top plate off, and sometimes the top plate is still attached to this part, so you got to get the whole fucking thing off, and that's a lot of inches to push forward to elevate this thing in order to get it separated. So basically the idea is once you get the chisel in, I like to use these little blocks so that we had Steve and Reggie make. Go in there and basically you just do like 3 or 4 all the way around, and then once you do that level of them, you go back and do a second level, and then by that time it should be off. And then what I do is I set it down on the ground, use my feet to hold it, and do a nice clean and jerk, pull that motherfucker off. So once it's off, you prep both sides, and then you figure out the shim. Now a shim, you want to use, I like to use PVC, just because it's non-magnetic, it's also cheap, and you want to cut it in a length that's longer, much longer than the motor, probably about this much taller than the motor, if you can see that. So that's going to give you more sort of alignment time when you're going to put this is also called the washer, when you're going to put the washer back on. So, but you got to figure out what the binding is now, or the shim is. So you don't want it to be too tight, and it's going to take a couple times of putting it on and taking it off for you to figure out what the right thickness is of the material in between. Now it does help if you measure and you can guess as much as you can. The problem is it's very difficult to gauge compression. So, and the materials will compress just slightly depending on how hard they are anyway. And like I said, you want to be able to remove the shims when you're done. But basically you're just going to prep both sides. This magnet's going to come off, or I'm sorry, this top plate's going to come off. You want to grind that side that's going to be glued, and you want to grind the old epoxy off of the top so that it's nice and clean. And then basically you're going to prep both sides, and then the way that I do that is just, you don't apply a lot of epoxy. We have our Devil's Jizz stuff, which I think is only 35 shipped for 60 cc's, which is a lot. You can do a lot of top plates with that. You can do a lot of other stuff, a lot of speaker building, things like that. I like to use that. If you don't have that or don't want that, or you're in a jam, you can use JB oil. That's fine. What you want to do is make sure that this motor is nice and warm though. And so when it's prepped, both sides, meaning both surfaces are ground, clean from debris, and have a nice like rough surface so that they're going to adhere really well. They're going to grab onto that epoxy really well. Sometimes I'll just set them out in the sun, let them warm up. So now on the Devil's Jizz, the heat actually helps cure it faster. So again, you want to kind of watch your temperature. I wouldn't do it in the summertime. You don't need to do it in the summertime. In the shade, it's plenty warm. But right now, this is considered winter for Phoenix, and it's like 70 degrees and sunny. And so what you want to do is put it out there to warm it up a little bit. You can use a hot plate if you really want to. then you risk getting it too hot and all that kind of stuff. You don't want to do that. You can also use hot air, like a blow dryer or a paint remover tool, hot air gun. Those are time consuming because you're using basically air, which is very, very fluid. It doesn't transfer heat to something solid very well. So there's that. So just use the sun. That's what I do. You want to get it nice and warm and bring it in. If it's too hot and you go, well, Patrick, what's too hot? Well, that's where it comes from experience. You just kind of get to it. Basically, you want it to be like what would be considered room temperature, about 78, 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's about where you want it to be. Then when you apply the epoxy, you want to apply it to both sides if you can. And then you want to smooth it out so it's nice and smooth. Again, you're looking for consistency. You're going to go ahead and plop that on because you've already got the shim, the proper size shim, which can be a combination of different layers of PVC or paper or Teflon or whatever you're going to use. You don't want to use stuff that has that compresses like cardboard, unless it's like a really hard cardboard, like cardboard tubing. That's okay. And also, basically what you do is you split one side of it like this. So this is actually the sewer pipe, which is hollow. There's a gap in between. I don't know if you can see that in between. I don't really like to use this, even though it has pretty good compression. I don't like to use this for that application when it's live. I use this one for when they're not charged. So, and then you can see here, this is the Concept CSP. Concept actually made shims for this application. So you put it on there. This one's live. I got to recharge it though because it slipped here on the third slug, and then so I had to remove it with the hot plate, and then re-glue this one, and then re-glue the top plate, and then I'm going to go back and zap it again, and then it'd be good as new. So I also got to get this shim out, which is going to be difficult, and there's other ways to get this shim out. So these are also brittle. I'm not really a big fan of them. Again, they're really good if you're doing production, if you're doing a bunch of them all at once, and they're all the same size. So I don't really do that. I do a lot of custom work, and so it's tough to have consistent tools for custom work. So if that makes any sense. And I don't do enough numbers to do any like magical jigs or anything like that. And also my machine shop right now is super, super busy, so I don't have time to go bug those guys on my stupid projects. So, and they are stupid projects because compared to the aerospace stuff that they're doing, my stuff is pretty stupid. So, and it requires a lot of setup and a lot of time. So I got to grease the wheels with a lot of beer with those guys. But real quick, so we're in here 8 minutes. This is long enough. You guys are going to ask a bunch of questions. I'm not going to answer them. So on this video, because you basically got to get in there and figure it out, and be careful. Like I said, wear gloves, because you know you're going to get pinched. There's going to be, this is really sharp. This is like obsidian. So that's how we got the name for the finger chopper. It's like I was just moving it and I barely brushed it like that, and it just sliced right into me. Be careful. That's all I can say. Other than that, I do offer the service for about $100. I'm doing this one for $100, and it's $100 plus shipping. So, but I'd rather save time and money and the environment if you don't ship it, if you just do it yourself. See how that works? So again, I didn't show you in the video how to actually do it. I just described it. And if that's not good enough for you, then you're dumb. Don't watch this video anymore, or fix that problem. If you're dumb, fix that problem first, and then do the video, okay? Do the stuff in the video, then attempt that, okay? But if you're not able to imagine this, work on your imagination and just realize that you're dumb and you need to set that. You need to account for that, okay? Some of you guys, you don't know you're dumb. And I've heard many times where grown man in his 30, 40, 50 years, 50s old, he's like, I've never had a grown man talk to me like that. I'm like, I'm sorry you're dumb. I'm sorry I'm the first one to tell you. Nobody's had the balls typically to tell you, or they're worried that you're going to run away because you're a customer and you have money. You're not fucking important to me. Even if you have all the money in the world, you're not fucking important to me. You're dumb. I don't want to work for you. Now, with that being said, now if you have like 100 of these and you want me to do them for $100, guess what? Then we're good friends. And that's how that works. So anyways, I love you guys. I will talk to you later. Bye.